Okay, now that we've introduced the text structure terms and given some examples for each, let's see if we can practice by identifying these text structures in context. So what I've done is pulled some excerpts from the article that we read earlier today on climate change, and I'm just going to ask for you to identify the text structure of each. So let's get started. So here is the first excerpt that I pulled from our article. It says the increasing visibility of climate change, combined with bleak scientific reports and rising carbon dioxide emissions, is taking a toll on mental health, especially among young people who are increasingly losing hope for their future. So determine whether you think which of the text structures you think best captures this excerpt. Okay, hopefully you chose cause and effect. It was a little tricky because there was a lot going on in this sentence, but essentially it's saying that the increasing visibility of climate change, which is a cause, combined with bleak scientific reports, which is a second cause, is taking a toll. And taking a toll is just another way of saying having a negative impact, right? Like harming somebody. And then it states the effect on our mental health. So this kind of increasing visibility of climate change and bleak scientific reports is taking a toll on mental health, which if you break it down is just a simple cause and effect relationship. All right, let's try another one. Experts call it climate grief, depression, anxiety, and mourning over climate change. All right, choose what you believe to be the best text structure for this sentence. Hopefully, you were able to identify concept and definition. There's a couple signal phrases to point out here. The first is the term call it. If it says experts call it, and then it states a term in quotation marks, your best bet is a concept that is being defined. The sentence then goes on to define it with the terms depression, anxiety, and mourning over climate change. So it's pretty straightforward, stating a concept, climate grief, and then offering a definition with that signal word call it at the beginning of the sentence. All right, here's another one. After the UN report was released, Jordan looked for a way to help her children cope. She saw a sign in her church for a support group that deals with the issue, the Good Grief Network. Which text structure do you think best captures this excerpt? Okay, hopefully you're able to identify that it is problem and solution. The beginning of the sentence states the problem, that there was this UN report released, and we know the UN report had pretty grim news for the future of our kind of climate change situation. So that's the problem. And then the sentence says things like way to help, and also it uses the word support. So it's telling you that it's going to give some solutions and kind of ways to solve the problem that her children were having trouble coping. And ultimately, the solution posed is that they join this support group. So this was a little bit of a tricky one because it was a complicated couple of sentences, but ultimately it's a problem. Her children were having trouble coping with this news, and it's a solution. They joined a support group. All right, let's give another one a try. A study earlier this month found that after holding steady from 2014 to 2016, emissions rose in 2017 and are on course to hit an all-time high in 2018. Okay, select the best text structure for this excerpt. Hopefully you're able to identify that it's a sequential relationship. Anytime you have several dates, that should be a pretty clear signal that we're talking about sequences or putting things in order. And this is essentially telling us that there was sort of a course of events that happened from 2014 to 2018 where emissions are rising and kind of hitting all-time highs. But again, if you see those dates, you should probably have a pretty good sense that we might be talking about a sequential relationship. All right, the next one says, springs that were once flowing are now dry. Hungry and thirsty cattle are ruining once pristine land by scrounging for nourishment wherever they can find it. What is the best text structure for this excerpt? So I think the best text structure here is descriptive because it has a lot of descriptive details like flowing are now dry, ruining once pristine land. And remember we said anytime an excerpt is really helping you to see or hear or touch something, it's really evoking sensory details, it's likely going to be descriptive. If you chose cause and effect, you could probably make a case for that one here because springs were now dry and the effect is that hungry and thirsty cattle are ruining pristine land. So I could understand why you would choose cause and effect here because there is kind of a springs drying up leading to cattle having to find nourishment wherever they can get it. But hopefully you were able to also see that there's some description going on with some of these rich sensory details. All right, let's try one more. It's culturally acceptable to talk about all kinds of anxieties, but not the climate, says Van Susteren, the climate psychiatrist. select the best text structure. All right, hopefully you're able to identify that this is a pretty clear compare and contrast sentence. The signal phrase but always tells us that it's comparing two things. On the one hand, it is culturally acceptable to talk about other kinds of anxieties, but the sentence compares it to the fact that, or contrasts it with the fact that it is not acceptable to talk about climate anxiety. So again, look for that but in this sentence or an and in this sentence, and there's a good chance we're having a compare or a contrast. In this case, it's a contrast relationship. All right, don't worry if you missed a couple. We're just getting ourselves acquainted with this new skill, but hopefully you're starting to see the way that different sentences are structured and some signal words that might help you identify what exactly those structures are.